So I did grow up in scouting. My mom dutifully led a group of me and my peers through campouts, cookies, badges. We carried out service projects in our community and adventured through the tumbleweeds of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Scouting taught me not to pick any flowers unless we could see more than 100, to leave a place better than we found it, and how to keep a clean camp, or as we adults now call it, land use and stewardship, and being bear aware. It taught me to make certain everyone had a turn being it, choosing a song or leading a hike, which now I know is really kindness and inclusion. It taught me how to plan an event, the importance of giving back to younger scouts and teaching them our traditions, how to use Robert's Rules of Order to make a decision, and how to perform a flag ceremony, or what I now know is citizenship and leadership. And it taught me to sleep out in a rainstorm, handle a flooded tent, and wake up at 5 a.m. because it was my turn to start the breakfast fire. Or what I now have learned is called type 2 fun. The type of fun that's uncomfortable, hard, and decidedly not fun when you do it, but is the required block for character, resilience, and a pretty good story later on that is fun. So character building, citizens, ethics, kindness, inclusion, and a formative experience in my own growing up. This should have been a no-brainer when it was time for my kids to join the scouting movement, right? Well, about the time Matthew was old enough to join, Boy Scouts of America was making all the wrong national headlines as it was wrestling with new questions of what being inclusive meant with regards to sexual orientation in a single-gender organization. And I had ongoing questions about what being inclusive meant for Scouts who don't believe in God. I was left wrestling with where my nostalgia met my current values. On one hand, my current values asked me, could I encourage or even risk my child participating in an organization that might not support their whole self one day, or teach my child that they were less than because of their sexuality? Could an organization that was non-inclusive of gay leaders at the time be a supportive place for my child? And was it even worth the risk of trying? Should my child pledge a duty to God weekly when we don't believe in the same construct of God as everyone else? And on the other hand, my memories and nostalgia asked, could I imagine raising a child without the experience of summer camp and groups of friends working to learn skills about the world? Could I deny them access to loving and caring leaders and a space to thrive outside of the school system? Did I want to raise kids without a weekly focus on citizenship and community, especially as this was before we had found the UU? I knew my family wasn't religious growing up, and while I promised to serve God each week at my scout meetings, I didn't feel like it indoctrinated me necessarily. While I was grappling with these questions myself and with James as first-time parents trying to navigate the world of youth activities, my internal struggles were being played out in parallel on the national stage with Boy Scouts of America and the UUA, a story I welcome anyone to dive deeper into at uua.org/children/scouting, but I will try and do my best to summarize this morning. At the General Assembly in 1999, the UUA issued a social justice statement titled, "Work to Change Discriminatory Policies of Boy Scouts of America." This statement was in response to the two primary issues between UU and Boy Scouting, mainly the Scout requirement to pledge a duty to God and the exclusion of gay Boy Scouts and Scout leaders, issues that absolutely cut to the core of UU's 7 principles. The action of immediate witness issued that year included guidance to UUA at the national level to reinstate the religion and life emblem, which is a UU religious emblem that Scouts BSA can earn, or Boy Scouts could earn at the time, to monitor troops nationwide to be sure that all Scouts were being treated equally and fairly despite their religious beliefs, and for UU churches to continue their charters with BSA while they work to try and change the BSA's discriminatory policies. The guidance given to individual congregations at the time included advice to support the efforts for Scouting for All and other groups that were seeking to overturn discriminatory policies, to continue presenting the religious awards, and to urge individual UU Scouts to remain in Scouting and encourage UU members to join Scouting in order to work and create change from within the BSA, to engage in dialogue with local Scout troops, councils, and the BSA on these issues, and ask local Scout troops to adopt anti-discrimination policies. 3 years later, after this guidance was given during GA, Zach Wall, who is a UU member and former Eagle Scout, which is the Boy Scouts' highest award, formed an organization called Scouts for Equality. This was a national 501c3 committed to ensuring that Boy Scouts of America continued to be an organization that contributed positively to the lives of young people and worked towards an organization rooted in equality and free of discrimination. It was interesting because he was asked multiple times, why not start a new organization? Which might be what you all are thinking now. Why? Why take this organization that was making very offensive bad policy? Why not throw it out and start new? And he doubled down, and in all of his interviews continues on the idea that because the Scout Oath says that we are kind and fair to others, the work to be done was changing Scouts to be inclusive, not to start a new organization. So thanks to that organizing and advocacy efforts, Scouts saw the end of a ban on gay Scouts in 2013 and a ban on gay Scout leaders in 2015. These two historic changes allowed for a memorandum of understanding between UUA and Boy Scouting in 2016, wherein the UUA and BSA resolved, and I'm gonna read a good bit of this because they're very good with words. They spend a lot of time and energy, so I wanna share it word for word. Whereas Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote sources for wisdom, reflection, and spiritual growth, including direct experience of mystery and wonder, words of prophetic people, world religions, Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love by loving our neighbors as ourselves, humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. And whereas one of the 7 principles that Unitarian Universalists affirm is a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and have many ways of naming what is sacred. Whereas the BSA Scout Law defines a Scout by qualities that UU also lifts up and aspires to, including, as Catherine mentioned, trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Whereas both Scouts and Unitarian Universalists strive to be good stewards of Earth as articulated in the Outdoor Code of being conservation-minded, and the 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are all a part. Whereas it is the mission and vision of the BSA to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes, and whereas BSA promotes family-centered programs related to leadership and character development, so there it's laid out kind of the statement of how the two organizations are similar, so that the UUA and BSA will work cooperatively. And at this time, it was only for boys, so be aware that's going to change here in a little bit. But so that boys, young men, and adults may nurture their religious life in a supportive and welcoming Unitarian Universalist community, develop into responsible citizens, serve the needs of others, and fulfill their greatest potential, and that UUA and BSA would work together, and that BSA would respect the spiritual and moral responsibility of UUA congregations with the understanding that there is no Boy Scout or UUA authority which supersedes the authority of leadership of the congregation in any phase of the program affecting the spiritual welfare of those who participate. So at this point, we make the agreement that UU Scouts can be Scouts and continue whatever their religious calling is and be in line with BSA. Unfortunately, that was not all the work that BSA needed to do in 2016. In 2018, Boy Scouts finally changed their policy to allow Scouts admission based on the gender listed on their application, not on their birth certificate. And later in 2018, Boy Scouts of America changed their name to Scouts BSA with the addition of allowing members of any gender to join, fulfilling finally the mission of equal scouting for all. It took 19 years to get here. 19 years from that first action of immediate witness to completely inclusive policies of our LGBTQIA plus communities. And in the last 6 years, we continue to work on how this inclusion actually works where the rubber meets the road, with everything from shared sleeping and tending arrangements, and most importantly, how does it actually work for youth to feel included and welcomed on an individual level? I know in our troops that my older kids are involved in, we've watched at least four non-binary scouts who have succeeded in the program and felt at home. And when I asked Catherine, she says absolutely her troop is very inclusive, with the caveat she's not sure that all of Scouts BSA is. And while the UU religious emblem is still an option for a UU Scout to proudly earn, Scouts BSA language is a little less clear. It maintains that no member can grow into the best kind of citizen without recognizing an obligation to God, while at the same time noting it is absolutely non-sectarian in its attitudes towards this religious training. While ceding the roles of religious training to the family and home to define a Scout's God, we can recognize that this carves out only a very narrow gap for those Scouts who are atheists or agnostic. I can share that we know that our God-free children, if you will, have never felt less than or excluded because of their beliefs. But we do find this place to agree to disagree with BSA that while sorry, my wording got a little funky here. While an obligation to God is not what we are looking for, we do believe for our children to be the best type of citizen they can be, they have to have some strong understanding of what their beliefs are and be able to define them. So while we may not use the same three-letter word as everyone else, we do feel that this portion of Scouting is important, though ours looks very different. So in the end, how did we reconcile all of this history and information and living through these 19 years of bad and hurtful policy? One thing I came across that was a good reminder is the definition of good and evil is not abstract, and they are in the choices that we make each day. We as a family leaned away from the national news and leaned into the actual people we would be entrusting with our children day in and day out. We leaned away from combing through the Scout book to catch them with a bunch of I gotchas and ha-ha and that doesn't make sense, and lean into the actual people who are going to be the role models for our children, checking to make sure they would welcome our children, regardless of their religion, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of who and where and how they were going to grow and develop. The antidote to our fear was always action, in big ways and in small ways. We still most certainly don't agree on everything in the Scouts BSA handbook, or agree with every single Scout leader we work with, but we do trust each of these leaders to live by the Scout law and oath, and to do their best, knowing that each of us strives and fails and makes mistakes. We humans are a messy bunch, but this is the only childhood our kids get, and waiting for things to be perfect was never an option. Over the past 9 years, we've served as leaders, unit leaders, treasurers, troop parents, drivers, recruiters. We've seen families stay or leave Scouts because Scouts is too conservative, and leave because it's too liberal. We've seen families pull their Scouts because the program is too religiously focused, and we've seen families leave because the program isn't religious enough. Each of these families was both wrong and right. But how amazing could it have been if each had stayed past their fear and modeled for their children the work of getting messy with those with whom we don't agree, and looking for those 90% of places where we agree, instead of focusing on the 10% where we don't. When our Scouts moved from Cub Scouts, so my little boys in the blue, to Scouts BSA, which is our middle school and high school program, they then themselves are charged with this messy humanity as they move into a Scout-led model. The patrol leaders plan the outings as they are elected by their peers. They plan the meetings and lead their events with minimal adult input. Watching these Scouts navigate each other's beliefs, personality quirks, and differing abilities and interests gives hope for the future. Because if they can do it, maybe we all can. Maybe these kids will grow up to be the leaders we need in our nonprofits, our boardrooms, and our governments one day with these skills they started honing in 6th grade when they couldn't agree if they were going to make root beer at their next activity or go on a hike. We as a family don't know what would have happened if we had made a different choice 9 years ago, but we did enter scouting eyes wide open, trusting in our own judgment and ourselves that along the way, we would have to leave the organization anytime it didn't fit with our values. But instead of finding reasons to leave, we found leaders, families, and friends working together to do their best and uphold the values of scouting. We found values that match our faith, and that when we discuss it at the dinner table, how we are helping others and how we are grateful. We found adults willing to get their hands dirty and take on the challenge of teaching our young youth about citizenship through presenting at City Council about the housing crisis and navigating this hard discussion about housing accessibility in a room filled with scouts, of which some live in 9-bedroom mansions and some live in 2-bedroom trailers. Adults willing to take groups of adolescents 50 miles into the backcountry and serve as those surrogate parents in the hard lessons of resiliency through pain and blisters. And peers who are right now working on book drives for ESL students in the community, building picnic tables for Fork and Spoon, planting trees at our local parks, and improving our trail system for everyone here to enjoy. While I hope this gave you an interesting peek into the history of UU and scouting outside of our family, I also hope you can take away some inspiration on this through your week. First, much like the UUA's reaction to scouting in 1999 and 2016, I encourage you to find a wrong in your life or in your community, and instead of walking away, dig in. When an organization you're working with has a questionable policy, dig in and make that change from within. Talk to the people around you and make those changes. You could have made a very understandable decision to boycott scouting, and none of us would have judged them. But they advised their congregation to lead with love, and through its leadership and fellow UUs taking leadership, change to a current policy that is inclusive of all humans. What struggles are you facing this week with an organization where you can maybe lean in instead of leaning out? Where can you take the Scout motto of doing a good turn daily into your life? What good turn have you done today? What grace can you offer yourself at the end of the day if you were to judge yourself by the Scout motto of only doing your best instead of some external metric? You don't need to be a child or in a uniform or even in Scouts at all to embrace these Scout mottos. And they may just keep you a child at heart in this very complicated, messy, imperfect world of perfect humanity. And this is where I was supposed to end, but I forgot. Speaking of that, I have a good turn that I would love to invite you all to do. As you may know, Easter is coming up early this year and is next week. LRE is going to be hosting an egg hunt after service. More information will go out about that, but we have hundreds of eggs in the RE room. And so if you are able to do a good turn today by helping put candies and puzzle pieces in the eggs after service, I invite you to the LRE room. But thank you.